So this week in my DoorDash local group on Facebook, someone posted an article from several months back about how DoorDash was throwing out a new warning to their customers. Essentially, that if you don't put a tip on your order, it may take a little longer, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. There are videos and memes all about it. No tip, no trip. As a driver for one of those companies, you are an independent contractor. You're not an employee of DoorDash, not an employee of Uber. You get to decide your own hours for the most part, and you get to decide what trips you take. And I can admit there are very few times that I take knowingly a no tip order. So in certain instances, I do think a tip is always necessary. But also in others, no way, I'm not adding anything to you. And that's coming from someone, like most people, who have worked in tip-based industries. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on the crazy tipping this year, because I have some more thoughts on it. But let's jump into a few videos that came across my For You page, and let's talk about it. So this first clip it's long. It's a long clip, but I do think it brings up some interesting points. So I apologize in advance if I pause it while we're watching it.
My DoorDasher tossed my coffee down because he got mad that I didn't tip on DoorDash. So we need to have an honest conversation about tipping.
Coming from the driver perspective, that is a shitty thing to do. You did not have to accept that order. You didn't have to do it. Intentionally knocking something over. I have had times where things weren't sealed properly, and as I'm leaving it next over, I've asked the restaurant to fix it. Mistakes happen, but intentionally ruining their food for something you accepted. You said, yes, I will pick up this food from here and I will bring it to you here. There you go. Here's my pay that I agreed to. That's just, you should not be doing this if that's your attitude.
Real fast, I'm gonna take a seat about this because this is absurd. This is psychotic to me. If you can't tip, you can still order food. If you can't tip, you can still do things. If you can't tip, you can still go out to eat. Tipping is the only thing where people are cowards about it. With everything else, we've had walkouts and boycotts and stuff like that, strikes about it, about minimum wage, about how we should work harder. If you all stop serving at the same exact time, you can actually get some work done. Did you know that? People are saying, well, if you don't want us to tip, if you don't want to tip, you're gonna have to start paying $20 for a burger. I already paid $20 for a burger, dude. I already paid $20 for a burger. Well, go get the food yourself. I will. I'll walk up and grab it myself. Well, DoorDashers, you should tip DoorDashers because they drive. I don't have a car. What's the point of using DoorDash? They already pay the DoorDashers. Me leaving a tip is out of the courtesy of my heart, and it's a good Samaritan thing to do. I'm not a good Samaritan. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna be like I'm a good person all the time. No, I'm not always a good person all the time. I'm human. I have days where I can't pay extra, and me giving extra money doesn't make me less of a good person in any capacity. It makes me broke. It makes inflation insane. It makes life difficult. That's what it is. Life is hard.
Life is hard. Everything is getting so much more expensive. And I do believe you're spending $20 on a burger, especially depending on where you live. But if things are so hard, and here's the thing, I get wanting those little luxuries. I have an eating out budget every single month. It's about $40, $50. I don't order food for delivery because I know I'd have to pay extra. I don't order groceries for delivery because I know I would be paying extra. I disagree that if you're going to go to a sit-down restaurant, he didn't specify, but that's what I'm going to assume based on this conversation. If you're going to a sit-down restaurant or if you're having food delivered to you, yeah, you have to tip. If you cannot tip when going to those types of establishments or ordering from those types of services, then you shouldn't be doing it. But I know it's not my priority to spend that much money on those conveniences and messing with anyone's welfare. Again, I know they can pick and they can choose, but I don't know.
My rent is crazy. My bills are crazy. My phone bill is $150. Everything is tough. Everything is difficult. I have no streaming services and it's still hard. This is tough. Why is tipping the draw line of everything? Because no one on this planet should toss my DoorDash order for not tipping. No one should do that. That's a bit of an overreaction. reaction, if I've ever seen one, to
Yeah.
come up to grab the order, waste your own time, waste money, waste 2 hours of your day, because it took 2 hours to get my Dunkin' Donuts here, and come up to me and say, "You the person I didn't leave a tip?" And I said, "Huh?" And then tosses it and leaves. He was obviously having a bad day.
Oh, so he did this in front of you. He confronted you to your face and then okay. You must have been having a real bad day for that to be like your sticking point. I thought he did this for the guy to come down and find it. And your order took 2 hours to get to you because you didn't tip. I mean, at that point, you're already spending so much on the delivery fee and the taxes, which I don't understand it. It is ridiculous how much they charge. I know it's a business and like you've got to pay for your employees, whatever. But it wouldn't have taken 2 hours if you would have tipped probably like $5. At the end of that, what is like $5 for you to get your food in less than 2 hours? But I do agree. There was absolutely no call for him to do that to your food. You did pay for it, and that guy did agree to deliver it for whatever that base pay was.
Maybe he was fed up. Maybe he needs another job. I don't know. But DoorDash pays you per order. You can see if they tip you beforehand. Just don't accept the order. Have some other poor sucker bring me my food that doesn't want to get a tip. That's fine by me. I used to DoorDash. I used to be a server at Waffle House, at Big Boys. I used to be a cook at Waffle House. I used to do so many serving jobs. And I will tell you one thing. It is so much better as a person to have a better temper about tipping, because it's not going to change unless you want to get up and do something about it, unless you want to complain about it yourself, unless you want to do a mass walkout. Do that. Do a strike. Something like that. You can do that. You have the ability and the option to do that. But no, you want to blame the day-to-day person because you're gaslit by corporations and then thinking that we have to pay your wages. It's like the shopping cart situation. You don't have to return a shopping cart. It just makes you a better person to return a shopping cart. But you don't have to. You don't have to tip, but it makes you a better person if you spend the extra money. You shouldn't go out to eat if you don't tip. You can eat whatever you want to. Stop. This emotional gaslighting, this corporation gaslighting about tipping is weird.
I feel like I agree with him on a lot of this. The DoorDasher accepted the amount. He should not have thrown the food. Like, point blank, should not have done it. And I do get it, because I've had that frustration where there's like an order where it's like, God, like 15, 20 miles, like outside of town, like far away from everything. And you're not tipping for someone driving would probably be like an hour of their time. You're not. So I agree with most of what he says here. This customer did not deserve to have his food and drink destroyed. He didn't. He went through it, he ordered his food, and that driver accepted it. He waited 2 hours because he didn't tip, but the driver accepted it. And I do think it should be the company's responsibilities to pay their workers fairly. Like DoorDash and Uber Eats paying like $2 for an order, no matter how large, no matter how far. There should be some more accountability, especially when you're already charging like service fees and taxes and other fees on top of already jacking up the prices versus like you going and getting it. You have added extra things on top of everything else. And here's the thing, that DoorDasher can't determine their own rates. You tell them, hey, here's a job, this is what it pays, accept it or don't. And servers, and depending on probably where you work, you make more in tips than you ever would making any sort of minimum wage, which, like, that's incredible. But, and I've never been a server per se, so I can't truly speak on that, whether it would be better for them to have a set hourly wage. However, you're working multiple tables at once. So if you have 3 tables at once and they all tip you like $20, that's like, it's probably not $60 in that hour you're making because you probably have to tip out other people, but that's really good. And I think the tip should be a nice, like, hey, attaboy, you did a great job. Thank you. And companies should pay their employers a living wage. But again, I can't speak too much into that because I haven't done that side of a tip-based job.
Tipping culture is out of control. This is a list of people I'm not tipping in 2024, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm not tipping at the drive-thru. I'm not tipping for froyo. I'm not tipping for Auntie Anne's. Yes, they ask for tips there now. And I'm not tipping on to-go orders. And I know the hostesses have such a huge problem. This is my opinion. And yes, I have been a hostess and a server in a past life. Anyone who sets their own prices, I will absolutely not be tipping you. The whole point of tipping a service professional is that you're paying the business like double or triple what the employee is actually making during that service. So if you're both the business and the servicing employee, why would I pay more on top of that if you're going to obtain the full 100% of what I paid? Doesn't make any sense. If you need a medical qualification or license in order to administer the service to me, I'm not giving you a tip. It goes against the code of ethics to accept tips for these types of procedures. So
I think everyone can agree with this list. Again, I don't tip at like walk-up things. I don't tip in the drive-thru. I really don't go to many places where I would tip. I did feel a little pressured at my son's like birthday party to tip the hostess. I don't know what she makes per hour, but we had a room for like 2 hours and she did set everything up. So I didn't end up tipping her. I didn't know that was a thing, but I did end up tipping her. But like for food services, I'm tipping if I'm sitting down. If I am sitting down somewhere for an hour, hour and a half, you are waiting on me, you are bringing me things, you are, all that stuff, I'm tipping you. If I have a to-go order, no ma'am. If I have a drive-thru, absolutely not. I agree, 100% on all of that. Beauty services is interesting because she brings up such a good point. If you set your prices, I shouldn't tip you. Because if you want more, then charge more. Now, at some places, I don't think you set the prices. Probably like one of those more like general like chain places, I assume, making big assumptions here. But if it's like a little hair salon boutique and you're renting a space, I'm pretty sure you set your own prices. Because it's your own business. You're not really an employee of it. Like I do dog sitting, dog watching, I do all that through Rover. I set my prices. Rover makes recommendations on prices based on things in my area, but I set those prices. I never once expect any of my clients to tip me because I set that price. That is a price I'm willing to accept. I will say, when she brought up medical, hers is medical cosmetic services. I don't get those done, so I'm not sure how I feel about it. I know when I would get like my eyebrows waxed, I tipped that, but that's not really on her list. But it just reminded me of the scene from The Office. If it lets me play it, I'll add it. But where Dwight goes through his list of who he doesn't tip, but he does mention his urologist because he can't do that one himself.
Do you expect tips just because it says it now every time?
You don't expect the tips because we want
So
it.
if you do something right here and you don't say I tipped you digitally, you don't know.
Really interesting. I thought like the other person was judging if I pressed like no tip or...
If they are judging you, they should not because they literally can't see.
A lot of people aren't used to tipping for quick services. You think that you guys deserve
For the
it?
most part, yeah, paying for not just the stuff that you're getting, but also the
How do
experience.
you feel about those
I
screens?
don't necessarily like it myself. I feel like it puts pressure on the consumer for no reason. Like, for instance, if I go to a little store around here, grab a drink or something, and then they flip the screen, it's like asking for a tip. For what?
You really want to show like an act of kindness, something that like speaks beyond words. Cash tip is a little better way to say that.
They are happy to give. They are
I don't know if that's true for all of those little screens, but I always did wonder if they could see if I would press no tip. Because here's the thing, at those quick services, what experience am I getting? I did my order, you made your food, and now I have it, or you made my drink and now I have it? I don't know what that experience is. Like, that's why I tip at a sit down. There's an experience, there's a whole thing. At a quick service, there isn't. And of course, like, some people are gonna be a little back and forth. Like, do we deserve a tip? Yeah, everyone wants some appreciation for what they're doing. And then others, which it sounds like he's probably like more the business owner who doesn't like the undue pressure it can put on his customer. Because that can be a real turnoff to people. Like, I don't want to go there if that's the expectation, especially if it's like just a little store. Like, I don't want to tip there.
Basically, everyone agrees now that tipping is out of control, and this is why. This right here is who to blame. Square. I think it all comes down to the user interface of these Square registers. Just the fact that they give you 3 different options to tip, and they're much bigger than the no tip amount. It's a psychological hack to think that, like, you should tip for this. The fact that pretty much everywhere has these, even places like ice cream shops that you didn't really used to feel like you had to tip at. You could, maybe there was a tip jar, but now it feels just awkward if you don't. And that's why it really is those Square little iPad things.
As unless something has a spot there for a tip, it's not going to click in your mind that you should tip. If you see a little tip jar, you're going to think about it. If your receipt says tip, you're going to think about it. If this giant, like it's not giant, but the screen is up there telling you like all these different percentages of what you should tip, you're going to feel obligated. I do think it's this technology that has really driven tip culture. This is from the Square Up website, where it does say they take a percentage of tax and tip from each transaction. So of course, if they're going to make a little more money, why wouldn't they push that forward? It's upselling. It's like when they ask you, do you want a large? Or when they used to ask you to supersize it, they would get a little more money and it wouldn't cost them really that much more. So why wouldn't they try and push that forward? I'm going to leave a link to that down below so you can check it out yourself. But I do think that is a big proponent of what really pushed tip culture forward in the US, because it's big business now. And then just kind of branched out from there. Everyone wants a tip. So I don't know if that's the customer or if the business has a choice to not have that as an option. So that would be interesting to find out. So this is me the next day. I recorded my commentary to our last video, but I have no idea where it went. So I am refilming it, so let's jump on in.
If you don't have money to tip your server and you go out to eat and don't tip your server, I have zero respect for you.
Paint me out to be the villain here because I'm not. I'm just going to share my opinion. I've never been a server, but I never would, because I know the nonsense that they have to deal with on a daily basis, and I know I cannot manage it. I automatically respect someone who was or is a server. However, we need to stop blaming the customers and calling them cheap and stingy just because they don't tip, because tipping is not mandatory. It is a choice. 98% of the time when I go out to eat, I tip because my service is at least good. It just has to be good in order for you to get a tip. If your service is bad to the point where I don't want to come back, I'm not giving you a tip. But it is not the customer's job to pay your wage. We need to be taking this up with companies who are not paying their staff enough money. Tipping culture has gone insane in America. A lot of places nowadays add the gratuity to your receipt, so you don't even have the choice to choose how much you want to tip if you want to tip. Blame the wage makers, not the customers.
So the only time I've ever come across a place putting tip on automatically is if you have a large party. Like if you have like 6 or 8 or more guests, then normally it says somewhere that like an 18% gratuity is automatically added. For like 1 or 2 people, I've never had it just automatically added on there. If my service is good, you're gonna get a tip. I don't think I've ever not tipped in a place where the expectation is you tip. It might not be as much as I normally would have, but I'm still tipping something. Because even though I've never been a server, I have bussed tables where the waitresses tipped me out for doing that work. I've been a host where I've gotten tips. I've never done the serving job. I don't think I'd be very good at it. Not that I'm not polite, not that I can't multitask, but like she said, I don't want to deal with that. Like I have the utmost respect for servers. It is a lot. It's a lot harder than I think most people realize. As long as you are good at your job, I'm going to tip you. At least that about 20%. Now, if you're fantastic and I can afford to tip more, I'll tip you more. So I'd be really curious to know down below what your thoughts are on tipping culture. I go back and forth. I do think certain expectations, I do think if you're doing something in particular, you should tip or you shouldn't do it. Like if you're going out to sit down and eat where you know that person's making like $2 an hour and you don't have enough to tip at least that 15 to 20%, you should not be going. You should not be eating out. If you really want that food, order it to go. Order it online, pick it up, go home and eat it. But if you're gonna have someone wait on you for an hour to an hour and a half, you should be tipping. If you are doing something for convenience, getting your groceries delivered, getting your food delivered, really anything delivered, you should be tipping on that. They are doing an extra service for you. You should tip them. I would love it if the companies would pay a fair wage for it. So tipping could just be an extra thing. You were incredible. Here you go. Thank you so much. Instead of it being like what is needed for that person to survive or make any decent money at what they're doing. We're not there yet. Hopefully one day we will be. Be an interesting conversation to see if that really does benefit both sides of things. Let me know down below what your thoughts are, and I will catch you all on the next one. Bye.